While I was in church with the man I loved the most, I looked at the priest when he asked if anyone had a problem with their marriage. Suddenly, an elderly man burst into the church, telling the priest that he was against marriage. For as long as I can remember, I've always dreamed of perfect love. That idea of finding the right person, walking together through a flowery park and feeling butterflies in your stomach. I never imagined that, after so many disappointments, I would finally find someone like Myron. It was at a friend's party that our eyes met for the first time, and I knew something special was about to happen. "You're beautiful," he said, taking me by surprise. I felt his words echo inside me like a melody I hadn't heard in a long time. I couldn't help but smile, and in that moment, all my insecurities seemed to disappear. It had been so long since someone had looked at me like that, with such affection and admiration. My last relationship had been a disaster, marked by fights and resentment, but Myron seemed different. He was funny, charming, and most of all, he seemed genuinely interested in me. We spent the whole night together, laughing and talking. I felt like there was a real connection between us, something I had never experienced before. The next day, we met at the park. We walked for hours, talking about our dreams, fears, and ambitions. Every word of his seemed to attract me more, making me believe that maybe I could finally be happy next to someone. "Hillary, I think you're the girl I've been looking for all this time," Myron said, her eyes shining with sincerity. I almost didn't believe it when he asked me to date, so fast, but something inside me knew I could trust him. "Yes," I replied without hesitation, feeling my heart race with emotion. It was as if I had found my other half, someone who completed me in ways I didn't even know were possible. In the following months, our love only grew. Myron introduced me to his few friends, and I did the same with mine. He got along well with my parents, winning them over with his charismatic way and his life story. It sounded like a fairy tale, but deep down, I couldn't ignore the feeling that everything was happening too fast. Then came the marriage proposal. In an elegant restaurant, in front of all those present, he knelt down and proposed to me. The sparkle in his eyes and the emotion in his voice made my heart leap. I said yes without a second thought, ready to start a new life by his side. But as the wedding approached, I began to notice little things that didn't fit. His interest in gifts, the sudden mention of a prenuptial agreement. Something seemed wrong, but I ignored my doubts, believing that love would overcome anything. Little did I know that the truth was about to be revealed, in a way that would change my life forever. After the proposal, I began to notice subtle changes in Myron. At first, it was small things, like the twinkle in his eyes when he talked about wedding gifts. But as the days passed, these little oddities piled up, becoming impossible to ignore. One night, he called me to discuss the prenuptial agreement. "I think we should include a specific clause," he said, laughing nervously. "If you file for divorce, you'll have to pay me a fortune." My initial reaction was shock, but I shook my head, convinced that he was just being cautious. After all, true love should be contract-proof, right? Still, a feeling of discomfort accompanied me. One afternoon, while cleaning his apartment, I found a divorce certificate hidden in the back of a closet. Myron's name was there, emblazoned in cold, hard letters. "You never told me you were married." I confronted him as soon as he arrived. "Hey, calm down," he said, trying to hold me by the shoulders. "This marriage was a mistake of the past. It doesn't mean anything to me now." His pleading eyes and persuasive tone almost convinced me, but a shadow of doubt remained. A few days before the wedding, Myron came to my house and said we needed to talk. "Hillary, there's something I need to tell you," he began. But before he could continue, his phone rang. He answered quickly, turning his back to me. "If you screw it up, I won't be able to answer for myself," he whispered. When he hung up, I asked him who he was talking to. "It was just a crazy ex-girlfriend," he replied, rolling his eyes. My intuition screamed that something was wrong, but I ignored it, convinced that our love would overcome any obstacle. But the doubt continued to grow, dark and persistent, as the wedding day approached. The wedding day has finally arrived. I woke up early, my heart pounding with anxiety and excitement. I put on my white dress carefully, feeling like a princess about to live her fairy tale. My friends were by my side, helping with the last details, and my parents looked at me with pride. Everything seemed perfect, but a shadow of doubt still hung over me. When I arrived at the church, I was delighted with the decoration. White flowers and candles illuminated the place, creating a magical atmosphere. Soft music played in the background as I walked down the aisle, holding my father's hand. My eyes met Myron's, and he smiled at me tenderly. For a moment, I forgot all doubts and worries. I was about to marry the man I loved. The priest began the ceremony by reading the traditional vows. I was lost in the beauty of the moment when he asked the question, "If anyone here has anything against this marriage, speak up now or shut up forever." It was then that everything fell apart. "I'm against it." A man's voice echoed through the church. All eyes turned to him, an elderly man who was walking steadily down the hall. "I can't allow Myron to marry this innocent girl." Shock took over me. I looked at Myron, waiting for an explanation, but he was pale, his eyes wide with fear. Before he could react, police officers entered the church, surrounding him. Myron tried to flee, but couldn't. They handcuffed him and dragged him out while I screamed, begging for answers. "Why are they taking him?" I cried. "What's going on?" The man who broke the marriage approached me. "I'm sorry, Hillary," he said. "I'm Myron's estranged father. He was charged with repeated fraud. I couldn't let her marry him without knowing the truth." My world fell apart. Tears streamed down my face as the cruel reality unfolded before me. Myron, the man I loved, was an imposter. My heart was in pieces, and all that was left was pain and betrayal. After the chaos of the interrupted wedding, I sat on the floor of the church, dazed and my face bathed in tears. The one who introduced himself as Mr. Brown, Myron's estranged father, knelt beside me, his expression grave and compassionate. "I know this is a lot to process, Hillary," he began, his voice heavy with sadness, "but you deserve to know the truth." I looked at him, trying to understand how my life had changed so drastically in a few minutes. Why did he do this to me? Why did he lie? Mr. Brown sighed deeply. Myron has always had a talent for manipulation. From a young age, he used his charm to get what he wanted. When his mother left us, he began to seek out wealthy women to support his lifestyle. He would get married, steal as much as he could, and then disappear. So, he never loved me? My voice came out shaky, full of pain. "Not in the way you deserve to be loved," Mr. Brown replied, his eyes reflecting a bitter sincerity. "He saw in you an opportunity, not a life partner." As he spoke, the last few months began to make sense. The little things I ignored, the warning signs I despised. Myron had been careful, almost too perfect. He had manipulated my feelings, played on my vulnerabilities, and created a facade of love that was now shattering. "But why are you here?" I asked, still trying to understand his role in this story. "When I found out about the wedding, I tried to warn you to change your life, not to do to you what you did to so many others. But he didn't listen to me. So, I went to the police and told them everything. I knew I had to stop him, for you and for all the others he had deceived." My head was spinning with the revelations. Everything I thought was true was nothing more than an elaborate web of lies. The pain was unbearable, but deep down, I knew I had escaped something much worse. Mr. Brown, in spite of everything, had saved me. "Thank you," I murmured, my voice weak but sincere. "Thank you for saving me from this nightmare." He nodded, holding my hand in a supportive gesture. "You deserve better, Hillary, and one day you'll find someone who truly loves you." As his words settled, I realized that the road to healing would be long and painful. But with each bitter revelation, I was one step closer to letting go of the past and rebuilding my life. The days following the disaster of my marriage were a blur of pain and confusion. Friends and family tried to console me, but no words seemed able to ease the crushing weight of the betrayal. I isolated myself, spending hours staring into the void, trying to understand how naive I was. One morning, I received a letter. It was Mr. Brown's. He wanted to meet to explain more things about Myron and maybe help me find some peace. Reluctantly, but curious, I accepted the invitation. We met in a quiet cafe. Mr. Brown looked tired, but his eyes showed a sincerity that comforted me. "Hillary, I know that nothing I say will erase the pain you're feeling, but I hope it can bring some clarity." He began to tell me about Myron's past. As a young man, Myron was a charismatic boy, but the loss of his mother transformed him. He became obsessed with money and power, using his charm to manipulate and deceive. I tried to help him, but he was determined to go down this dark path. As he listened, he felt a mixture of anger and sadness. Myron had wasted so much potential, destroyed so many lives. "And I was just one more on his list," I muttered, fighting back tears. Mr. Brown shook his head. "You are not just another one. You're strong, Hillary, and I believe he can heal and move on." Those words, spoken with such conviction, were a balm for my wounded soul. I realized that I needed to stop seeing myself as a victim and start seeing myself as a survivor. The following months were of reconstruction. With the support of friends and therapy, I began to take back control of my life. I enrolled in courses, rediscovered forgotten hobbies, and slowly regained lost confidence. Every small step was a victory against the darkness Myron had brought into my life. One afternoon, while walking through the park, I met a young woman crying. She was in the middle of an abusive relationship and didn't know what to do. I held her hands and told her my story, sharing how I had weathered my own storm. "You're going to make it," I told her with an encouraging smile. "The pain eventually turns into strength, and you're stronger than you think." As I consoled her, I realized that my own healing was being completed. I was turning my pain into something positive, helping others find their own strength. And finally, I was ready to move on, leaving the past behind and embracing a future full of possibilities. Life was starting to find its rhythm again. Each day was a new chance to rebuild, to find strength in the little things. It was then that, in a local cafe where I used to write in my diary, an unexpected reunion changed the course of my journey. I was lost in thought, jotting down reflections on my progress, when a familiar voice called me. "Hillary?" I looked up and saw Raphael, a longtime friend I hadn't seen in years. He was the kind of friend that life had pushed away, but whose presence always brought comfort. "Raphael, what a surprise to find you here." I smiled, feeling a wave of nostalgia and joy. He sat next to me, and we started talking as if time hadn't passed. Raphael told me about his career as a psychologist and how he had helped many people overcome trauma and emotional challenges. As we spoke, I felt a growing desire to share my story with him. After listening intently, Raphael held my hands and said, "Hillary, you've been through something extremely painful, but what impresses me the most is your resilience. I want to help you turn this experience into something even more powerful." I gratefully accepted his offer of help. We began to meet regularly, where Raphael guided me through therapy techniques and self-reflection. It helped me better understand my emotions, deal with the remnants of pain, and strengthen my self-esteem. In one of these sessions, Raphael suggested that I write my story. "Your experience can be a source of inspiration and strength for many people, Hillary. Think of it as a legacy of overcoming." The idea resonated deeply with me. I started writing about everything I had been through, about Myron, about the betrayal and the pain, but also about the strength I discovered in myself. Every word written was a step toward complete healing. As I wrote, I noticed a change. My story, which was once a source of sadness, was turning into a narrative of power and resilience. I began to feel that I was not only healing myself, but also creating something that could help others find their own strengths. Raphael was not only a friend during this process, but also an inspiration. He taught me that pain can be transformed into a powerful force, and that each scar is a testament to our ability to overcome. With his support, I continued to write, determined to complete my story. She knew that at the end of this process, she would not only be a survivor, but someone who had turned her pain into a beacon of hope for others. With Raphael's help, my book began to take shape. The words flowed, transforming my painful memories into chapters of resilience and overcoming. Each page written was one step closer to complete healing. One afternoon, while reviewing one of the chapters, I received an unexpected call. It was Mr. Brown. "Hillary, I need to talk to you. There's something important I need to share." His voice carried an urgency that made me uneasy. We arranged to meet at the same cafe where we met for the first time. When I arrived, he was already there, with a worried face. "What happened, Mr. Brown?" I asked, trying to keep my cool. He sighed deeply before starting. "Hillary, Myron is trying to get out of jail on bail. He is using all possible legal tricks. I thought you should know, to prepare." The shock of the news made my heart race. "But he can't leave. He can't keep hurting people," I said, his voice trembling. "I agree," Mr. Brown replied. "That's why we need to act. We need to make sure that the truth continues to be heard." It was then that I had an idea. What if I publish my story? What if I expose everything that happened, not just to find peace, but to make sure he doesn't hurt anyone else? Mr. Brown nodded, a glint of hope in his eyes. "This can work. Your story has power, Hillary. It can open the eyes of many people." With renewed determination, I worked tirelessly over the next few weeks. Raphael helped me polish the manuscript, and with the support of friends and family, I finished the book. I decided to title it Butterflies in the Storm, a metaphor for my transformation and emerging force. Finally, launch day arrived. The small auditorium was packed with familiar and unfamiliar faces, all gathered to hear my story. I went on stage with my heart racing, but sure that I was doing the right thing. "Good evening, everyone. Today, I share with you a journey of pain, betrayal, and most of all, resilience. I hope my story not only inspires but also warns of the dangers hidden behind smiling faces and sweet words." As I read excerpts from my book, I saw tears in the eyes of some, understanding in the eyes of others. It was evident that my story was resonating with people. At the end, Mr. Brown approached and hugged me. "You did something amazing, Hillary. It turned their pain into a force that can really change lives." At that moment, I realized that my story wasn't just about me. It was about all the people who had been deceived, about those who were still struggling to find their voice. And, more importantly, it was about the strength that resides within each of us, ready to emerge when we need it most. As I signed books and listened to other people's stories, I felt a surge of gratitude. Raphael was right. My pain had turned into power, and now I was using that power to make a difference. Finally, I was free. Free from the past, from lies, and ready to embrace new horizons with renewed courage and hope. The success of my book brought a wave of unexpected changes. I received messages from people all over the world, sharing their own stories of overcoming. I felt a deep connection with each of them, as if we were united by an invisible thread of resilience. One night, while reviewing some emails from readers, I received a message that made me freeze. "Hi, Hillary. I read your book and I need to talk to you. I think I'm one of the women Myron fooled. Can we meet?" The name in the email was Sarah. With a heavy heart, I agreed to meet her. We booked a coffee in a discreet place, and I didn't know what to expect. When I arrived, Sarah was already there, a young woman with a sad but determined look. She recognized me immediately and came towards me. "Thank you for finding me," she said, with a faint smile. We sat down, and she began to tell her story. Myron had come into her life the same way he had in mine. Charming, caring, and soon after, manipulative. "I lost so much because of him," Sarah confessed, her eyes tearing up. "But your book gave me the strength to seek justice." As she spoke, I realized that there were many similarities between our experiences. Myron used a repetitive pattern of lies and manipulations. And now, with Sarah by my side, we had an opportunity to join forces and make sure he paid for his crimes. We decided to take our stories to the police together, presenting new evidence that Sarah had. I knew that this could strengthen the case against Myron and prevent him from getting out of prison. On the day of the meeting with the investigators, I felt a mixture of nervousness and determination. We entered the police station hand in hand, two women united by a shared pain, but also by an unwavering will for justice. We told our stories in detail, handed over documents, and the investigators listened to us attentively. We left there with the promise that they would do everything in their power to keep Myron behind bars. Sarah and I became close friends after this meeting. We found support and understanding in each other, and our friendship became a source of mutual strength. The days that followed were filled with uncertainty, but also renewed hope. I knew that regardless of the outcome, I had done everything I could to seek justice, and that, in itself, was already a victory. My book was not just a story of personal overcoming. It was becoming a catalyst for real change. And with every new connection I made, every new story I heard, I felt like we were building something bigger, a network of support and resilience that could transform lives. While we waited for the outcome of the case, I continued writing, now with Sarah by my side. Our stories intertwined, and together, we were creating a new chapter of hope and strength for all who, like us, had to find their voice in the storm. The days became weeks, and finally, Myron's trial began. The courtroom was filled with journalists, onlookers, and many of the victims he had deceived. I sat next to Sarah, feeling the tension in the air, but also a strong determination. When the judge entered, everyone stood up, and then silence took over the room. Myron was brought in handcuffs, his gaze cold and calculating, but he avoided meeting my gaze. The prosecutor began by presenting the case, detailing all the frauds Myron had committed. Each witness who stepped on the bench reinforced his true face, a manipulator and liar. My turn to testify has come. I walked to the witness stand, feeling the weight of all the eyes. I took a deep breath and began to tell my story, from the first meeting with Myron to the moment he was arrested. I told everything, without omitting any painful details. Myron's lawyer tried to discredit my testimony, but I was prepared. I answered each question clearly and firmly, determined to show the truth. Sarah also witnessed it, her words filled with pain and strength, painting a clear picture of Myron's manipulations. After intense days of testimony and evidence, the trial came to an end. The judge retired to deliberate, and the wait was agonizing. When he returned, everyone held their breath. On the charge of repeated fraud and emotional manipulation, the defendant is found guilty. The room erupted in murmurs. Tears of relief streamed down my face as Sarah hugged me. Finally, justice had been served. After the trial, I felt a peace that I had not experienced in a long time. I decided it was time to turn the page and start over. With the money I earned from the lawsuit, I started an organization to help victims of fraud and emotional manipulation. I wanted to turn my pain into something positive, something that could help other people get back on their feet. My story became a beacon for many, and the organization quickly gained notoriety. We received letters and emails from people thanking us for the support and hope we offered. Raphael, who had become a great friend and ally, continued to support me. Together, we organized lectures and workshops, sharing our experience and offering tools so that others could protect themselves and recover from similar situations. Life, once so full of uncertainty and pain, was now filled with purpose and hope. Alongside Sarah and Raphael, and with the support of so many people, I felt that I was finally where I should be. The future was shining with new possibilities, and I was ready to embrace them with renewed strength and courage. Myron's trial marked the end of a dark chapter, but also the beginning of a new era, an era of justice, rebirth, and world-building where truth and resilience prevail. The months following the trial were intense but rewarding. The organization I created was growing rapidly, helping countless victims find their way back to life. Sarah and I have become inseparable. Our histories intertwined not only by the pain, but by the strength and resilience we have discovered together. One morning, while reviewing preparations for a big fundraiser, I received an unexpected call. It was Raphael, with news that left me speechless. "Hillary, you've been nominated for an award for courage and social impact." I could hardly believe it. The tears came quickly, a mixture of relief, happiness, and surprise. "Raphael, this is incredible. I don't know what to say." "You deserve this, Hillary. Her story and work have inspired so many people. I'm very proud of you." On the night of the awards, the hall was filled with familiar and unknown faces, all gathered to celebrate those who made a difference. When my name was called, I felt butterflies in my stomach, but also renewed courage. I walked to the stage to warm applause and accepted the award with trembling but firm hands. "Thank you," I began, my voice echoing through the room. "This award is not just mine. It belongs to every person who had the courage to stand up against injustice. It's Sarah's, who has become a sister to me. And it's all of you who believed in truth and resilience. The applause increased, and I saw tears in the eyes of many. I came down from the stage with a light heart, knowing that this moment was more than an acknowledgement. It was a symbol of everything we had achieved. That night, we celebrated our victories and remembered those who were still fighting. Raphael, Sarah, and I toasted the future, promising to continue our work and expand our reach. Each smile, each hug that night reinforced the certainty that we were on the right path. Days turned into years, and our organization became a beacon of hope for many. We continue to grow, touch lives, and build a world where justice prevails. Looking back, I see a journey of pain transformed into purpose, from despair transformed into hope. And so, with a new dawn ahead, I'm ready for all that life has to offer. With friends by my side and a purpose in my heart, I know I can weather any storm. Because in the end, the truth always shines through, and resilience guides us to a future of light and peace. As the sun sets, I know that this is just the beginning of a new era, an era of courage, love, and endless possibilities. Let us know what you think of this story and share this story with your friends. It might brighten their day and inspire them. See you in the next exciting story.